consider with an open mind, what are these ideas and these videos actually teaching you? Where are they leading you to? You will discover they are leading you back to yourself, to your true self. They're leading you back home, to where your real power lies, which is within you. That's beautiful. And that's how they will save lives. Welcome back to this new inspirational video. Today I wanted to talk about how metaphysical and law of attraction teachings can actually save lives. Because saving a life, saving your own life, means much more than on a purely physical sense of, existence itself. I mean, that is one aspect of our reality, and yet it can save lives if we understand the power that we hold inside of our consciousness. And as a humanity, as a race, we generally don't really know the power of consciousness because it's left out of our upbringings. So when people stumble upon these teachings when they're adults, it's not uncommon for them to mock it or think it's silly, or how could the mind really improve or save lives for that matter. But it actually can save lives. This much I'm convinced of, because I know it has saved my life. When I lost my way, when I felt all hope was lost, I found it back every time I studied these ideas and really reminded myself of the power behind it all, that if I would just use my mind, somehow I will figure out a way to overcome the negativity and obstacles I might currently feel inside of myself and might be even facing, physically speaking. So there were times in my life where I felt really depressed, and we're talking about actual suicidal depression, where I don't really want to live. There was like a lot of pain inside my soul. And then for a while I would try to numb myself away from that pain, even though I was teaching or studying these teachings. I wasn't teaching or talking about it yet as I do now, for good reason, because I had some stuff to work on for myself before I would go to this part of my journey throughout life. And even though I was studying it, I was still sad. But these materials, these ideas always gave me hope. So every time I noticed I would step away from studying this material, my mind would go down again, like drastically. Now, why was that? Well, one of the biggest reasons why that happens is because of, in general, our tendency to look at the world and just kind of go along with it mindlessly. So this is kind of especially dangerous, you could say, in this day and age, because of all the stimulus that we receive through the senses. Like, if you're just even on your computer and you're on the internet, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or some other platform that shares content of some sort, it's very easy to get confronted with all sorts of contradicting ideas, perhaps with negative stuff here and there, positive stuff here and there, silly stuff here and there. It's all over the place. And by our tendency to just go along with it, we actually might forget entirely the power of our minds. And that's what's happened with me in the past, especially. These days I'm very mindful of it. When I go throughout my days, I'm very mindful of what I'm doing. So I can look at YouTube and just be entertained for myself, or watch somebody else's content, whether that's inspirational or entertainment or whatever, something totally different than what I'm currently making for my own channel. But I would be very mindful of it, in the sense I wouldn't spend a lot of time there, because I know it's more important to understand my mind and keep myself in control of my mind, because otherwise I'm gonna lose my mind potentially. And sadly that's what happened to many people. But here's the thing, if they understand how to get back the power and control of their minds, they can actually save their own lives if it has been lost. And when we say when life has been lost, we mean when people are in a depressed place, a suicidal place like I was. Some people find that shocking for me to say, because they're like, well, these people, they really need a lot of help in order to improve their lives. This can be true. That's why I always suggest people to, if they're seeing a psychiatrist or getting medication, for now, I would never say, oh, stop all of that. It's not my business. They should just keep seeing the people and doing the things that they've been doing so far that at least have helped them to live a more effective life. But here's the thing, you don't want to always be dependent on other people or things now, would you? Perhaps you need it because of certain physical reasons, but It doesn't excuse us from not understanding or learning about the power of our mind, so we can at least execute it to the best of our abilities while we are here, because what you're going to find is that it's going to help you grow towards a much better future in general once you take direction of your own thoughts and imagination and feelings, the feeling nature. Once you actually control that, you can clearly see that depression can also be overcome from a very spiritual angle. But again, I know it's kind of controversial, that's why I don't make videos specifically addressing people with mental health issues, because I am not an expert on these things specifically. I'm just very focused and experienced in the power of consciousness itself and what it is capable of doing based from experience and observation. So that's what these videos are about, and that's the beauty of them, is that they can help anyone, they work for anyone, because we all have this so-called power and are this so-called consciousness that's operating with and through this body currently, that's having this human experience. So, one of the notes I wanted to share with you is the following. Can teachings about the mind and law of attraction really save lives? Well, yes, of course. In fact, if you doubt this and feel mostly stuck in negative thoughts and feelings, it will be especially beneficial to discover that you can develop the power to direct your own mind towards uplifting and positive things at will. But of course, at first, it may not be simple. It's like working out. At first, we might not be able to do a lot physically, but as we keep training ourselves, we become stronger and end up lifting heavier weights. It's the same with our minds, and once we become strong enough, we will literally see that it can save not just our lives, but everyone's life. Since we all are this powerful, limitless force called consciousness, operating with and through the body, and we have a choice whether we aim at the positive or negative. It may be shocking, it may feel like a huge responsibility, but in the end it can bring you the greatest joy in life once you can unleash peace from within, because you have learned how to calm down the storm of negative thought patterns. Really think about this. Negative thought patterns. That's essentially what we're dealing with, all of us here. Going through this physical life experience, we deal with negative thoughts and feelings all the time. But yet we are not being taught or studying how we can actually take control of it, or if we can redirect such forces that are going on a spiritual level within us. It is ignorance why we don't ask ourselves that question, because if we did, we will obviously find the answer, and that is yes, we can control those forces and actually create a wonderful change within ourselves of joy, peace, happiness, bliss. It's absolutely amazing if you stop this crazy chaos in the mind enough and it calms down enough that you find automatically a place of total peace and calmness. I've experienced this numerous times throughout my life, and it keeps expanding. The more I work with these ideas in my own life, the more these experiences are occurring for me. And what I mean is that I could be sitting here, or I could be walking, or I could be doing something, but my mind is in such a relaxed state that I actually feel total peace. It's pretty hard to describe, but it's a calmness that is, I know, very uncommon for most people, but yet if they would find this calmness, they would suddenly feel there's a weight being lifted off their shoulders. It's because they have let go of the negative thought patterns in that moment. And that's what you can do for yourself. But as long as those negativity is going on like crazy in there, well, it's hard to grasp this concept of total peace within you, total serenity within the soul. But that happens once you let go of the negativity and just embrace stillness and peace. Again, these are all parts of learning about the power of consciousness, and that you have the ability to actually do this. As long as you don't understand that you have the ability, or don't understand how to actually work with this ability, well then, it's no surprise that people are having issues with this at first glance. Now, another point I wrote was, where does the law of attraction come in? It comes into the picture when we finally grasp that when we are in a certain state of mind, whether this be positive or negative, it will always start to attract more and more of its own nature to us. So therefore it should become evident why it's important to think in positive terms, but we must think in truth and not force positive thoughts or have delusional ideas about it. We actually have to be balanced and feel the truth of the positive thoughts we affirm, so that they keep on attracting greater and greater thoughts and feelings to us. This is guaranteed to lead us into a more positive and uplifting life altogether. It can't be any other way. Do not doubt in its power. Simply prove it to yourself by working on this concept. So the concept being, if people are in a bad spot right now, if they're really stuck in negativity, if every day they are repeating that same negative story, the story, it might seem like a downplaying of their problems. And we don't mean it in a bad or condemning or like talking down on them or on their problems. We mean it that we are repeating perhaps an event that took place or is still taking place, physically speaking, for example. And because we keep repeating it to ourselves, we keep reliving it inside of our own consciousness. So if we stop repeating that story and say once and for all, okay, this happened to me, or this is happening to me, but I'm not going to let it control me any longer. I'm going to focus on something positive. I'm going to focus on where I want to go. I'm going to focus on how I can achieve peace, bliss, and harmony within myself. And as you even make that decision, that it sounds simple. Even if you make that decision and you really made it, you're really honest about it, you should and will instantly feel a relief come over you because your mind is suddenly changing frequencies. So that's also one way you can measure whether you've really made a decision that you're going to change your life around or not, is that you will feel it inside of your emotional self. You will feel something change around for the better. And that's when people talk about, it feels like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Sometimes people tell me that after listening or studying some of the ideas that I share to my channel. And the reason for that is that they simply discover for themselves that by simply listening, even to videos like I make or somebody else makes, they can discover it brings them ideas that can actually help them look at their situation from a better angle. And because of that, it automatically takes away some of the power that the negativity had over them. Because you see, they were stuck in their own negative cycle. That's when they keep repeating that story, and then we come along and we tell them you can live an absolutely wonderful life. At first, because of the negative cycle people are in, they want to reject that. They think that makes no sense because currently they're already in a negative state of mind. So how can they see something positive from that angle? You can't, because you're in a negative state of mind. It's pretty obvious. But then by opening up the mind just a little bit, by at least being willing to listen to me or others, what people will discover is that they have a power in themselves, and then slowly but surely they start to realize, if I have this power in myself, I could and should actually be able to change this around that I'm experiencing. And our answer to that is yes, of course you can change that around. It's up to you. And especially it will be most meaningful if you learn to do it. So going to teachers all the time, as some people make the mistake, is also not the solution, because then you're sort of idolizing the teacher and forgetting about your own individuality and power that you have. That's the most important part to grasp, this own stillness and power of awareness that you have. You see, you don't have to go along with the negative thoughts at all. But yet, if we feel them very strongly, it's very difficult to just switch our minds away from them. That's why we do that gradually. That's why we soothe ourselves, so to speak, into the positive side of our own minds. We slowly but surely learn to aim our minds more and more at the positive direction. And sometimes, or many times, we actually need help in this process. And the help can come in the form of videos like you're watching now, or reading inspirational books. I do that all the time. I kid you not, even last night I got a couple new books about the mind. I'm very excited, and I just start reading a couple of them, and I start underlining stuff. I mean, I study these books like crazy. That's how I read the books about the mind, pretty much. I study them. I don't just read them, I study them. And then I learn something new about how I can, go about my business in a more effective way. And that's exactly how you can go about this as well. Even though if things are negative or feel hopeless, these teachings can save lives. They can save your life. If you would only just believe in these words, you will see salvation occur in your own life. Trust me. And I'm not saying that because I want you to believe in me and then idolize me or something. No, none of that. I'm saying this so that you can hopefully hold on to the strength to see this true. That even though the negative sides of life might temporarily blind you from all the positives and what could be possible for you, if you're willing to set aside your prejudice and criticism and just consider with an open mind, what are these ideas and these videos actually teaching you? Where are they leading you to? You will discover they are leading you back to yourself, to your true self. They're leading you back home, to where your real power lies, which is within you. That's beautiful. And that's how they will save lives all over the world. It happens all the time with many people that I don't know about, but I simply know from statistics they must be out there. People have made huge and amazing changes in their lives by applying all these ideas that we share through this channel in general. And that, I think, is the beauty of all these teachings, is how powerful they are and how applicable they are, no matter the gender or age or race. None of these physical aspects matter. We're talking about divine truth, which exists within through us, the divine truth of consciousness. And you have one. You are one. You are that power. Become aware of it. Make stuff happen. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.